Hello there, children and parents. I'm Mark Berger. I was just looking after the Christmas tree. Isn't it beautiful? I suppose you've all come for a special Christmas story. Well, actually, I've got 3 Christmas stories to tell you. I am sure you will enjoy them because they're from my best friend, Thomas the Tank Engine. He's had lots and lots of Christmas adventures. But there are 3 Christmas stories. I'm sure you've never heard before, but they're really enjoyable. This story is about his friend, Henry. It says right here, when snow came to Sodor, Henry was the only engine who didn't get stuck. He thought his trucks must be lucky. But how would Henry get on without his lucky trucks? This story is called The Snowy Special. Winter had arrived on Sodor and the island was covered with snow. The tracks were icy and slippery and many of the lines were blocked by snowdrifts. Henry puffed happily through the snowy countryside. None of his lines were blocked. Henry was the first engine to arrive back at the sheds that evening. All his friends were late. Thomas rolled in next. "Well done, Henry," he chuffed. "You must have lucky trucks."
"Maybe you're right, Thomas,"
Henry smiled, and Henry went to sleep, feeling very proud of his lucky trucks. But the next morning, Henry's lucky trucks weren't in the yard. Henry gasped. "Edward took your trucks," Thomas explained. "He's delivering coal to the villages." The Fat Controller arrived. "A delivery of presents is waiting at the airport," he told Henry. "You must take a gift to all the children in the villages." Henry set off nicely, but the rails at Gordon's Hill were very slippery. Every time Henry tried to puff up the hill, he slid back down. It took a long time to reach the top.
"I need my lucky trucks,"
Henry worried.
"I must find Edward right away."
Henry steamed on through the snow, but soon he had to stop. Some logs had rolled off James's flatbed and were blocking Henry's way.
"Bust my buffers!" cried Henry. "This would never have happened if I'd had my lucky trucks."
"You should be at the airport," James snorted.
"Not without my lucky trucks,"
Henry replied.
"I must find Edward first."
Henry shivered sadly, while Rocky set to work clearing the track. "Don't worry, Henry," Rocky rumbled. "You'll soon be on your way." Rocky was right. The trucks were quickly cleared and Henry steamed away to find Edward. But everywhere that Henry chuffed, there were more delays.
"Hurry please, Thomas,"
Henry wished.
"I need to find Edward and my lucky trucks."
Thomas puffed as quickly as he could to clear the snow, but it was hard work. Henry had to wait.
"I'll never find my lucky trucks,"
Henry sighed. But at the frosty forest, Henry did find his lucky trucks, and Edward too. Henry beamed from buffer to buffer. He tried to stop, but his wheels slid on the icy tracks. Henry crashed straight into the line of trucks. Bash!
"My lucky trucks are broken,"
Henry cried. Henry sat sadly in the snow. He didn't want to go anywhere without his lucky trucks. "But they're broken," said Edward, "and the presents still need collecting." Henry thought about how sad the children would feel if they didn't have a present to open.
I must get to the airport, he puffed, with or without my lucky trucks.
Henry set off slowly. His wheels slipped and slid on the icy rails, but he kept going. The more Henry thought about the children, the less he thought about his lucky trucks. At last, he arrived at the airport. He collected the presents and puffed away to begin his deliveries. Henry steamed all over the island until he had just one delivery left. Some children were waiting for him at the station. "Hooray for Henry!" they cheered.
I didn't need my lucky trucks after all,
Henry smiled. And when he looked at the children's smiling faces, he felt like the luckiest engine in the world. That was a good story, children, wasn't it? It just goes to show, despite you don't have a lucky charm, if you just focus on something else, you'll feel already lucky. Well, children, now it's time for another story. This story could happen to you in real life. It's about delays, about trains and planes sometimes due to the strong weathers. Here's a story for what happened. It was so snowy one Christmas Eve, we thought that Connor's train would have to be cancelled. He would need help from his friends to pull home the last train in time for Christmas. This story is called Last Train for Christmas. It was Christmas Eve on Sodor, and Thomas and Oliver were busy clearing snow from the tracks. "I'm glad we won't have to wear our snowplows tomorrow," said Thomas. "We'll be warm in our sheds instead." Oliver looked puzzled. "Tomorrow is Christmas Day. No trains will run all day," Thomas explained.
Hurrah!
Oliver cheered. Over on the mainland, Connor was collecting passengers for Sodor, but there were too many people at Connor's coaches were soon full. As the guard waved his flag for Connor to go, there were still lots of people left on the platform. "Don't worry, I'll be back," Connor promised. "There's still one more train before Christmas." The Fat Controller met Connor at Knapford. "Sir, I need more coaches to make one more last run to the mainland and back. I'll bring everyone home in time for Christmas," said Connor. "Quickly then, Connor. The snow is getting heavier," the Fat Controller replied. "Don't worry, sir. I'm a really fast engine," Connor smiled. Connor steamed to the yard for some coaches, but all he could see were 3 mounds of snow. Suddenly, Thomas appeared, and with a biff of his buffer, the snow fell away. "Take these special slip coaches," Thomas said. "You can uncouple them without having to stop." "I'll be quicker than ever," Connor smiled, and he hurried away. Later, the Fat Controller had bad news. "Snow has blocked the main line," he said. "No more trains will run tonight." "But Connor and his passengers need to get home for Christmas, sir," said Thomas. "You're right," said the Fat Controller. "We must clear the tracks for Connor's last train." "We'll do it together," the engines agreed. Thomas and Percy got straight to work, clearing snow all along the main line up to Wellsworth. Suddenly, Percy spotted something in the sky. "Look, Thomas," Percy said excitedly. "Do you think it's Father—" "It's Harold," Thomas shouted. "He's searching for anyone stuck in the snow." "Oh," sighed Percy. Further down the line, the snow was very deep. Hero was the only engine big and strong enough to help. He cleared the tracks just in time for Connor's train to pass. Beep, beep! Thank you, Connor called. Hero looked up to the sky. Is that Father? Oh no, it's Harold on his patrol. Connor released the first slipcoach at Kelsdorf station. It rolled to a stop at the platform. Instead of waiting for the passengers to get off the train, Connor could get set off straight away. Beep, beep, whistled James. What clever coaches you have, Connor. Connor whooshed on and released the second slipcoach at Marin Station. Thomas had just finished clearing the line at Wellsworth when Connor raced through. Connor released the last slipcoach, but this one rolled straight past the station. Fizzling fireboxes! The passengers will be stuck in the snow, cried Thomas. Thomas called Harold to help, and together they brought the coach back to the platform. Well done, Connor, cheered the Fat Controller as the big engine pulled into Knapford. Thank you, sir, Connor smiled, but I couldn't have made it without my friends. That's right, said the Fat Controller. You all helped bring the last passengers home in time for Christmas. Beep, beep! The engines whistled together. Merry Christmas! The engines were glad to puff back to their sheds after a very busy Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, Harold! Thomas yawned as a shape flew high above them. But Harold was already fast asleep at a search and rescue centre. Someone else was flying through the starry sky that night. That shape flying through the sky above was indeed Father Christmas, but the engines were too sleepy to see that. But still, the next day they sure did have a very happy Christmas. Well, children, there's only one last story to go. This is indeed the same plot about the other Christmas story I told you, but with different characters instead. As you can see right here. This story is what happened one snowy winter. Percy and I worked to make sure our friends in the mountain village had a happy Christmas. This story takes place in the mountains, high above from the island of Sodor. And this story, children, is called The Snowy Surprise. One snowy Christmas Eve, the Fat Controller visited Thomas and Percy. Take Thomas's coaches and deliver Christmas post to the village, please, Percy, he told Percy. Thomas will help clear the snow today. Thomas was sad. I won't be able to wish the villagers a happy Christmas, he frowned. Don't worry, I'll do it for you, Percy smiled. Percy set off the mountain with Annie and Clarabelle. Snow wasn't going to slow him down. Through the falling snowflakes, Percy saw a red glow ahead. When he got closer, he saw that it was a fogman holding up a warning light. Snow has blocked every road and track to the village, the fogman called. You must fetch help, Percy. Percy had to help the villagers stuck in the snow. He thought of an idea. He left his carriages in a siding and steamed to see Harold at the airport. Beep, beep! Wake up! Whistled Percy. The mountain villagers need our help. Right away! Harold buzzed, and off he flew to tell the Fat Controller. On his way back to the yard, Percy met Thomas. The Fat Controller had received the call for help and sent Thomas to take Terence the tractor and a works train to help the villagers. Thank you for looking after my friends, Percy, puffed Thomas. Now follow me. Percy buffered up behind Thomas's heavy train and they set off for the village. Thomas's snowplough cleared the tracks, but climbing the mountain was hard work. Thomas and Percy had to go very slowly. When they tried to go faster, their wheels slipped and spun on the icy rails, but they still kept going together. Then at last, "There's the village," Thomas called. Percy was very tired, but he huffed his hardest until the train was safely in the station. Just then, Percy heard a buzzing noise in the sky. It was Harold. He was dropping parcels of food for the villagers and their pets. Then Terence got to work with his strong caterpillar tracks and snowplough. He cleared the snow so that people could walk safely and drive their cars. "Snow is super stuff," chuffed Terence cheerfully. The children thought so too. They loved sledging down hills and making snowmen. At last, the snowstorm passed. Terence ploughed the last road in the village and rolled back onto Thomas's flatbed. Percy went to fetch Annie and Clarabelle from the sidings. He still had all the Christmas posts to deliver to the villagers. By the time he returned, Toby had brought hot chocolate and mince pies for the tired workmen and villagers. Soon it was time for the engines to puff home. "Well done, Percy! Well done, Thomas!" The villagers cheered and waved. "Thank you for giving us a happy Christmas!" The engines smiled. They loved to be really useful. When Thomas and Percy had gone, the villagers planned a surprise to thank the engines. That night, the villagers packed Toby's carriage full of parcels. Then Toby puffed through the snowy countryside to the yard as quietly as he could. Thomas and Percy were fast asleep after a busy day. The villagers tiptoed into the shed carrying the parcels. Toby wondered what the surprise was going to be. Thomas gasped when he woke up on Christmas morning. "Cinders and ashes!" he smiled. The shed had been decorated with fairy lights and tinsel, and there was a real Christmas tree with presents underneath. "What a magical Christmas!" said Percy. "Surprises always make the best Christmas presents," Thomas peeped. Well, children, that was the last Christmas story. I hope you enjoyed these Christmas stories because you helped me to tell them to you, especially my good friend Thomas the Tank Engine. Still, I hope you will get a good Christmas this year. And if you don't get a good Christmas this year, then there's still lots of Christmas to look forward to, for the other days ahead. Anyways, I've got to go now. I've got to plan to make more Christmas stuff for my friends. But thank you for enjoying these stories, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.